And that is an invaluable lesson, things that I took from how to deal with pressure, how to make sure your focus is in the right place, not on all the externalities that are beyond my control, but on my part, being able to take it on and go, do you know what? Elation and despair, two sides of the same coin. If you want the big win, you've got to risk the big low. Yeah, the aggregation of marginal gains was actually thought up in a Starbucks coffee shop in Manchester Piccadilly Station. And I remember the moment that Dave Brailsford, now Sir Dave Brailsford, and I discussed it. And we talked about it in very different terms, which got massaged into the aggregation of marginal gains later on. But it started off as, we're really good at the core stuff, but what about all of the other things? What about all that stuff that we're dealing with, clothing and equipment, and we're good at coaching, but what about all the bits that are in between? And we realized that this concept allowed people to aim for bigger goals. It realized that it broke things down into manageable chunks where people could see and believe that they could improve that thing by a tiny amount, and that's doable. And then the next thing, yes, we can improve that by a tiny amount. And then when we aggregated them, we've made a big step forward. And that approach allowed people to believe that they could win, believe that they could succeed. And it motivates whole teams when you take that approach. It's so much easier than saying we have to be better than by 10%. And if people don't believe they can get there, you haven't got a motivated workforce. But break it down into manageable chunks, and everybody's got something that they can win personally at. Failure is one of my favorite things because it is the biggest learning experience. Anybody who's watching this video will be able to look back and find a moment in their life when they had a step change in performance on a personal level, on a business level. And I can almost guarantee you that it was born of something going wrong and a piece of learning that led them in a different direction, or got them a piece of knowledge that they didn't know they needed. So failure is really important. It's got to be managed. A true failure for me is keeping making the same mistake. Failure sometimes is status quo, and dying or failing through atrophy, just simply not changing. So I think it is the most invaluable, the most important aspect of success is understanding how to leverage failure and how to make it work for you. I think I've going back to being an athlete. When I first started, I worked with a sports scientist by the name of Peter Keane, and he introduced me to a simple process of, here's an evidence-based idea that we want to employ. And it might have been for a single training session or a whole year strategy, didn't matter. It was based in evidence, which gave motivation to go out and commit to it. And then we'd go out and do it, and then we'd pull it apart. We'd look at what we wanted to achieve because we'd defined what success looked like for that activity, whatever it was, whatever its scale, what actually happened. And more often than not, there was a gap, and we'd go, wow, what happened there? And then we'd have a new plan, a new evidence-based plan to go forward again. And it created, if you like, a fascination with the journey rather than the destination, about being better rather than being the best. And that is an incredibly positive mindset to deal with big, complex problems. I've always felt it was a bit of a cliche when people say you can draw parallels from sport into the real world, but I found it to be very much more often true than not. Because sport, what is sport? It's a very, very intense experience with high stakes, lots of stress, and lots of decisions to make. And so it is a concentrated environment where you can learn about performance. The one thing sport is good at is it's very clear what winning is. It's very clear what you have to achieve. And excuses don't matter. You know, you can't wordsmith your way to a gold medal. You have a fixed point where you have to be this good, and it's an honest environment in that respect, and it allows people to learn to deal with failure, and that is an invaluable lesson. Things that I took from how to deal with pressure, how to make sure your focus is in the right place, not on all the externalities that are beyond my control, but on my part. Being able to take it on and go, do you know what? Elation and despair, two sides of the same coin. If you want the big win, you've got to risk the big low. Do you still want to do it? Yes. But then you go in with your eyes open. So much value was learned in that environment that is just as applicable now working with national government. I hope audiences take away some personal things that they can go and use practically in their life. And I am very confident they can. I've worked with scientists, I've worked with engineers, I've worked with councils, and of course athletes. And I think the life lessons that I've learned and been taught through some amazing people en route, they're applicable in any walk of life, because we're all just generally human beings trying to get out of our own way. And these are tools to deal with those barriers.